issues. Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. This is the Town of Andover Board of Finance meeting for Wednesday, September 24th. We'll go ahead and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the Republic
for which
it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and
and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We'll move in our agenda. First item is public speak. I see Haley. Do you have anything you want to bring before the board?
Nothing at this time, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Tess, anything from you for the board?
I'm all set. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and I think Nick is just the community access channel. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Still free to communicate if you would like. So, okay. Hey, Kim.
Hey, how are you, Mark?
Good.
Good.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is changes or additions to the agenda. Does anybody have any proposed changes or additions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4.
Wait a minute. Sorry, Mark. I was looking down should we add schedule tri-board? Well, you had sent out an email tonight. Can that be an open discussion telling us?
Yeah, we could talk about those topics in open discussion.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, we'll go on to town administrator's report. Eric, floor is yours.
Okay, so you all saw the packet that I submitted. I just resubmitted the one I gave to the Board of Selectmen. So prior to the town you having the tri-board meeting, what I would like to do and get in your hands before that meeting is update the building and grounds report, which essentially functions as the 5-year capital plan for buildings and grounds. And then also share with you the project summary of where we are on all the active and proposed projects, as well as go over the grant master list of everything we have open right now. I can go over some of that information now. I don't know how much time you want to devote to the town administrator's report, or I can just take questions. It's whatever the board's pleasure if you have specific questions.
I always like the format when you go through it, Eric. It's nice.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
I don't know about the rest of the board.
The highlights. Yeah, I read through it, but yeah.
Sure. Okay. So the biggest ticket item right now is the bridge at Bunker Hill. So the really good news is we are back on track with that project. If any of you looked, the main deck beams are in. They should be pouring the deck slab, which is the thing that sits on top of that, by next week. There's about 5 sequential concrete pours that each have you have to pour, then you have to strip the forms, and you have to reform for the next one, and you have to pour the next one. So there's quite a bit of work to do, but the great news is that almost everything right now is in the hands of the contractor himself and his crews. He's not beholden to beam manufacturers or micropile installers or anything else. So that is good. The town and the state DOT put up kind of a uniform front in rejecting the contractor's original proposal, which was to repair the defective beams that were manufactured. We told them in no uncertain terms we weren't going to accept them, and the state DOT said in all likelihood they would degrade the load carrying capacity of the bridge if we did accept them. So we said thank you very much, no intention of doing that. They've put a lot of pressure on us, but ultimately I don't think we have any real liability with that. They're obligated to meet the DOT specs on their product, and they didn't. So we have every right to insist that it gets repaired. So that's back and forth. We had another issue with one set of testing for one set of the micropiles in the bridge. And for those of you who don't know, the micropiles are what secures the bridge abutment, which is the thing the main carrying beams sit on, down to bedrock, essentially. And what they do is they drill a series of holes. Each hole is about 6 inches in diameter, and they drill them down to the bedrock and then about 6 inches into the bedrock. They put a very heavy steel casing all the way down to the bedrock. They put a really massive piece of rebar that's like 2.5 inches in diameter down in, and then they fill it with grout. One of the grout strength test reports came back low, but in speaking with the engineer, they reran the calculations, even assuming that the grout, all of the grout was at that kind of very low level, and it still passes the structural test, which means there's no structural issues with the bridge. It's one of those items that's massively overbuilt anyway. So it shouldn't affect the longevity of the bridge. So we're back on track with that. With a little luck, we will be open fully sometime in December with it paved and ready to go. So really happy about that. The second thing is we've gotten to the point where we had a full-blown bid package for the improvements at the Veterans Memorial Field. So the committee had increased their wants a little bit over what we were originally asking for and planning, because we secured an additional legislative grant from the Connecticut State Legislature through our Senator M.D. Rahman. So that allowed us to spend more money on the project than we were initially. So we are planning on using what's called the EasyIQC program. And what that is a pre-bid arrangement that it's something that goes to bid every year competitively through the Capital Regional Council of Governments. And then other CROGs throughout the state piggyback on the capital region's bids. And basically what it is it's a line-by-line agreement from the contractor for what they charge for each operation involved in heavy construction. So what it does is it allows you to get something that's been competitively bid, but during the process of working through the project, the only thing you really have to come to terms with and agree on are what the quantities of each unit step is. So from an administrative standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Generally, the state has been very happy with towns using that program, because that really speeds up their ability to review the programs, and it seems to be pretty cost effective for the towns. Some of you may recall when we did the Community Connectivity Grant Program, which was roughly a $300,000 series of projects. That was an EasyIQC, and that came in reasonably well under budget. So I think all in all, it's a win for the town. The Board of Selectmen authorized me to sign a contract for that program for the work, and authorize the work pending a final response back from the Department of Economic and Community Development that because we added money from a second fund that is also administered through DECD, I have to submit a revised budget. So presuming they authorize the revised budget, I think sometime by the middle of October, we should be signing that contract and getting the work started. We are doing a portion of the work with Public Works, because there are some things in the original bid that I think we can do far more economically than than the contractor, just because we have a local public works and we have all the equipment to do those particular tasks. So that's kind of how we're tackling that. That is the kind of next big, project going, other than the bridge. I think I mentioned this to the board before, but we are moving up the time frame for replacing the Long Hill Bridge. If you remember, that bridge is a federal local bridge program grant with a grant from the state for something called Design Managed by State. And then additionally, it has some additional funds from the Investments in Jobs Act. So that is a fully funded bridge. The reason it got moved up 1 year is the state is really worried about the federal government pulling the IGA and potentially Fed local bridge funds from the program, because they seem to be doing that on a number of things. So they want to get these projects that there aren't major hurdles to doing, they've pushed them up in schedule, everything they could. And because that project doesn't require taking, and they already have preliminary Army Corps of Engineer approval, that's one that they can push forward. So that's what's happening. The other big concern.
Just a
Yep.
quick question. What is the target date for that? If you're saying hopefully the Bunker Hill would be done with, fingers crossed, maybe by December. What is the target date for, I don't have it in front of me. When would the
Sure.
target date to possibly start Long Hill?
We're going to be doing tree trimming November of this year, and hopefully utility relocation November and December of this year, with a firm date of April 1 for the start of construction. So Long Hill Bridge should be closed April 1 for a minimum of 8 months.
Thank you.
Yep.
Will we make sure that, I know that they don't intersect and the traffic doesn't, but will we make sure one project is done just to not have two bridges that might be affected? Well, you said April 1st. Yeah, there's a gap there. You're doing preliminary work before.
Yeah. We're really only doing preliminary work to get around the fact that the federal government added a particular bat species to the threatened list.
Uh-oh.
And if we cut trees as part of the grant and as part of the federal fund, once the federal project starts, if we haven't cut trees by then, we have a very narrow window in the middle of April, and it will delay the project. So we're just doing this to get around a particular federal rule, which will be cost neutral to the town. We do have agreement finally, after 2.5 years of arguing with them, with the Department of Transportation to put in a temporary light at Hendy Road for the period of construction. So that was obviously a big resident concern that traffic was going to get really backed up when you pushed both of those roads and everybody from the north end of town all down Hendy Road. So that was a big relief. That was a long, drawn out argument with the state.
I would assume, Eric, they're just going to turn off the light at Long Hill, right? They're not going to stop traffic anymore there, so they'll just turn that light off, I would assume.
Well, remember, you still have public works, you still have library, you still have.
That's true. Huh,
and you
that's
still
right.
have the food bank.
Church, yep.
So,
Stupid question. I'm sorry.
yeah, I think that light will need to remain, but it probably won't turn very often. Not nearly as often as it does now.
Yeah.
True.
Thank you for getting that done, Eric. I
good.
appreciate that, getting that extra light.
Me
Huge.
too. I
Yeah.
mean, that's my commute every day too. I've got a
I know.
vested
There's a few of
interest
us
in-
up that end of the, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's
So,
already a slow light, so it's gonna get even slower.
yeah.
Thank you. Yep, moving on, sorry.
No problem. I think tomorrow we're gonna sign the final employment letter with the new maintainer 2 for Public Works. That I think should work out pretty well for the department. The only issue is we are hiring somebody who has not completed his CDL. the town will pay him the cost for the CDL, but he's agreed to reimburse the town if he leaves town employment in less than 2 years. So I think that's kind of fair all the way around. We had an awful lot of applications, but we had very few good candidates. Really two, out of a pool of about 60. There were 2 that we would have considered hiring.
But that's so positive for the town, Eric, because I know in the past that you've said applications that come in, I mean, this is something I'm always, people just aren't looking to work in Andover. Again, I know you said they weren't qualified, but we are very competitive in our wages compared to other towns. So it just proves that people are coming towards Andover. So great.
I'm not sure I would agree with that statement, but everybody has an opinion.
No, I mean, that is my opinion on research, but I know we don't always agree. No problem,
Understood.
but that's positive. 60 applicants? Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but when you take out the bakers and the food service workers and the long haul truckers who can't run, we interviewed 5. 3 of those 5 we rejected outright.
I
there
gotta
were
get you
2
to be positive. We gotta see some, but you had 5 qualified applicants? Yes. But anyways, thank you.
We had 2 qualified applicants,
okay.
one of which agreed to take it.
Okay,
And you only need
Nothing,
1,
Ian.
so I am positive about that.
yeah.
So that's kind of it for the main administrator's report. I just kind of wanted to go
I
over the
have a
grant.
follow-up after.
Oh,
Sorry.
shoot, go for it.
Well, I don't know, and when I was shaking my head earlier, I always like to hear your report. I thought you were gonna go in deep on something else that you had mentioned, like our whole process of the budget. So, in part of your administrator's report, and I see the 2 ladies are here today, I don't intend to get into any kind of personnel, situation, but I know that I listened to the Board of Selectmen meeting and they touched on, there was a topic there and it's in your report that, Tess has rejoined the community center as the director. They don't talk about too much. And then I know Haley is here, who I've never met yet, but they're both here tonight. And then I know there was topics about, retaining both employees and a plan. I don't know how much the town is allowed to know as far as, with closed meetings, because you had it on an agenda and it's on our agenda tonight. And it obviously is a financial piece. I'm not, how the process wasn't really spoken about. So obviously I'm only going on the financial piece. So there was a person that was out of office for a while. Now she's back in office, which I'm sure she's happy about. Again, I don't know the back ends of anything. And then we have a person who is temporarily filling a position. So
Correct.
are you planning to talk to us about that, about the financial impact of that? Because I know it came up on the Board of Selectmen. Or is that another thing down the road? I just thought that they were both here, so I didn't, not that they need to speak, but I only like to say things in front of people. So I want them to know that I heard it at the Board of Selectmen, but it didn't go into too many details.
Sure. Ultimately, the Board of Selectmen is going to have to make a decision whether they want to retain both people and for what number of hours. And that's ultimately a Board of Selectmen
Of
decision.
course, yeah.
That will certainly have financial implications. And at the current staffing level, we would definitely be quite a bit over budget. There's no question about that.
And in the past, not talking particulars, I knew that building was funded with a full-time person and a part-time hourly person. And again, I'm just asking the question as a town resident too, like if I tuned into a meeting and it was on an agenda item, there hasn't been too much shared with the town except for, a couple things. So
Right, I
you're
mean,
saying, yeah,
The board made their decision after
Yep.
discussion in executive session, and I'm not,
right.
I don't have the authority to to say what their rationale was or what logic they used in executive session. That is a board decision. That's not an Eric decision.
And I want the town people that might see this meeting or listen to this meeting, I am in no, I'm neutral. I'm happy with whatever decisions are made. I'm sure there was a process, but I think they deserve to know just a little bit of them clearly. So thank you. I just saw the two ladies here. I would never speak behind their back. I want them to hear that I'm, hopefully it'll work out for the best for the town and, people can be positive moving forward, but whatever happened, it will be a result of an additional funding to the town because of whatever happened. So that's it. Thanks. If that's all you can share with us, it was just on your report. It was an agenda item that the Board of Selectmen did not discuss too much at the thing. So thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
So in terms of current grants that we have active, we have a grant for the senior transportation hub. That was originally a $275,000 grant. And the town agreed at town meeting to match that with $75,000. We've got through most of the background administrative stuff, which is basically getting through SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Society. We made a decision to use the EasyIQC program for that also, after the Board of Selectmen had asked to redesign that to include full second floor storage. Because as many of you know, one of the things we really lack as a town is dry storage. And there's lots of boards and commissions that, need space to store stuff, from the rec commission to the library, who has a storage facility at Andover Self-Storage, to the CERT team, with emergency operations supplies, all of that stuff. So we used the EasyIQC program. We got an initial bid or initial contract amount and document. And before we were going to commit anywhere near the kinds of funds to do that, I wanted to see a final structural design, number one, so we knew what kind of loading the second floor could actually accommodate. And the second thing is, I want a visual design, because this is going in a neighborhood on Center Street, and I want it to make the neighborhood look better, not worse. So we signed a basically $12,000 design contract with them, which will come off the cost of the construction, because they would have had to done the design anyway. And so once we get that back, we'll reassess what the total cost of the project is. But it is likely to be more than the 275 plus 75,000. There's no question it's going to be probably closer to $500,000 once we deal with asbestos abatement and demo of the existing structure. Probably 475,000 is a more realistic, plus a contingency. So if we're going to do that without going back to the town money, the town for more money, which I don't think anybody really wants to do, then we would probably be looking at spending LoCIP funds, which we do have available. And that will be a discussion for the Board of Selectmen, possibly the Board of Finance. That's between the boards, how they whether they want to go back to town meeting to discuss it, or how they want to proceed with that. So that's one project. I would really like to get that to construction in the spring. That grant's now 3 years old. Unfortunately, construction costs have gone up a lot in 3 years. But I think that's still a very worthwhile program for the town to do. And if we do it correctly, we are still talking about spending, $75,000 worth of town money, and roughly $400,000 worth of state money to do it. So it's still a pretty good investment on the towns. I talked a little bit before about the 2023 STEEP grant for recreational improvements. That was a $500,000 grant that we got a $150,000 town match at town meeting. And subsequently, we have received a legislative appropriation for this fiscal year for $250,000 for additional recreational improvements. So that allows us to spend $750,000 of state money on that and still keep the $150,000 town match, which will be partially services in kind and partially actually cash. Probably we're going to end up spending around $135,000, and the rest will be labor by Public Works. We also received a $10,000 Hartford Foundation for Public Giving to help out with the costs of that. So we're anticipating it being somewhere around a $910,000 project. And of that $910,000, $150,000 is Andover taxpayer dollars. So again, it's an expensive project. They had big goals for it, but it's mostly state funded. So that's good. The two large bridges over the Hop River, those both are ultimately 100% funded by state and federal dollars. Those are not actually taking any taxpayer dollars to do, which is huge because those are all, between $4 and $5 million projects. So it's nice not to have to pay even a portion of those. We had talked before about the issues with the bridge and the fact that we have to pay the contractor and then wait to get reimbursed by the state of Connecticut. We are currently out about $900,000 awaiting reimbursement for the state. So we had about $1 million combined between the Bunker Hill Bridge Fund and the Bridge and Culvert Fund. So we've tapped both of those, and we've already requested reimbursement from the state. We've already spent and got reimbursed about close to $1 million so far. It's just that the time when they delivered the bridge, the main carrying beams, that's a super expensive. So we knew this was going to be the crunch month, and we did get it under $1 million, so we didn't have to tap the unencumbered fund balance. So I think overall we're pretty good on that project, but that's the fact that we're that far out of pocket does make me a little nervous. We talked about both bridges. We do have a LOTSIP, which is Local Transportation Capital Improvement Planning Grant of around $2.9 million that's hanging out there. So as many of you would remember, 2 years ago, we asked for and got a legislative study grant of $100,000 to figure out the best way to connect the municipal campus to the rail trail and ultimately the library and recreational fields. So we got a $100,000 grant. We used that for preliminary data and to apply for 2 other grants, both of which we got, amazingly enough. And then we used the excess money for most of the design for the multi-use pathway that runs down School Road and then Route 316 and Cider Mill. The problem is we're probably around $100,000 short in finishing off that grant. And the LOTSIP funding that we have pays for 100% of the cost of the actual construction and the easements, and any right-of-way acquisition and all the physical costs of building, but it does not pay for us to finish the study. So one of the things I'm going to be asking out of the Board of Finance, and I should have a final design number from the contractor of what it will take to finish the design, is the money to finish the design so we can get that and proceed forward into construction, which will probably be in a year or two. So that is
Eric,
coming up.
Eric, question.
Shoot.
So this might have gone over my head, but so you're saying that we have enough grant money to actually build the project, complete the trail project, but not enough money to finish the mapping out of it, or am I
Yeah, the design of the project. So
yeah.
the way what a lot of state grants work, they come in one of two flavors. Either they will pay for a set percentage of the total project cost, or they will agree to pick up the design cost, depending on the grant, or they'll agree to pick up the construction costs. The LOTSIP program pays for the complete construction cost of the project. That's why it's such a sought after grant to get, because it's, you can get a lot of money out of them for pretty significant projects, and B, it does not require a town match. The problem with those grants is the town is on the hook for all the design and engineering costs up front. And which is why I went after the study grant initially, because I wanted to fund as much of the design costs as I could, because I knew I was going to try to use LOTSIP funding for the actual construction. And then if the town elects in the second part of that is we also then applied for the DEEP Rec Trails funding to do a design that goes through the woods from the town hall along the old Percy Cook Trail, hiking trail, to the rail trail. In part because it'll make a nice, cool couple-mile loop trail. And it's probably it's a lot more scenic than just riding down Route 316. So the one down 316 is better for ADA accessibility. The other one is, more natural and more scenic. So we went different tracks with those. And the goal really is to get enough money to finish the design. So because we have construction funds through LOTSIP, and then use the other grant, which will pay for the design for the second trail, and then go back to LOTSIP and see if I can LOTSIP fund that. Because because I have a grant now to do the finished design for that one, if I can supply LOTSIP funding for construction, then I will have done the program. I will have done that path without spending any town dollars, which is always the objective.
Eric, quick question. Is there a expiration date on that? I mean, I know that's a big undertaking, that 316 project that you're talking about. Is there an expiration? I mean, the town just has so many things going on and only so many people to oversee them. I mean, I know it's out there, but can we delay it a little bit to not have,
I think if
two
we worked
bridges
really
and-
hard, we would be in construction on the actual construction on that in 4 to 5 years.
oh,
This is not something we're going to be doing next year. That 100,000.
that makes me feel better. I didn't know. Right, you still have all the pieces to put together. And
Yeah.
I know one of the drawbacks, from going to the meetings and educating ourselves on it. Did we get permission from all the landowners it would affect? I mean, I know that's part of your thing, right? Has that,
So we talked
I
to
mean, I don't
every
need the,
affected
yeah.
landowner
Mm-hmm.
related to that project.
Because there was
So
about 6
it
of them, I
addressed-
think, that would be affected or something.
Yeah, there's not
From the
many.
meeting,
It
yeah.
addressed all their concerns
Yeah.
in the initial document we got back from DOT.
Okay.
DOT gave us an initial round of comments on it. They pushed back against a couple things. So we will have to go back to the homeowners, but we're not at a point yet. You know, we've got to get farther along in the design stage
Yeah.
before we have enough final pathway information to do it. The great thing about fully funding construction on this is it gives us the ability, that program, you can build in aesthetic elements to the design. So I think we can leave every single affected property owner aesthetically a lot better off after the trail than they are now. So I think our goal really is to work with them all one-on-one to ensure we satisfy what they need to get out of the project for them to feel comfortable to let it go forward.
No, thank you. Those were my concerns. I didn't, having so many
Sure.
things. You said 4 or 5 years out. Of course, you have to get all the permissions. No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. And by the way, I've been working on this particular project since 2015. So that's one of those things where if you can pull it off in, 15 years, that would actually be pretty good for a small town like us. It's not something that comes quickly. I talked about the DEP Rec Trails grant. That's the other big one. In terms of other things that we have funding hanging out right now, we have a grant in for a new handicapped accessible van that was submitted in the spring of 2025. We should get notified sometime this fall, late fall, whether we got it or not. I think it's unlikely that we're going to get it on the first application. There's just too many people applying for it. That's the kind of thing you apply for, 2 or 3 years before they finally decide your turn is up. So I'm not anticipating that we get that. If we did, it would require a 20% match. So that would have to go to town meeting, and we'd have to go to town meeting to accept it. But, we get a replacement for our van, which is kind of falling apart. So it's something we need to do at some point anyway. The second thing is we still have a request to the federal government for money to complete the community center and to add a backup generator to the town hall. Again, that got approved by the Senate Finance Committee. It's the second year in a row they've approved funding for us. But last year they didn't fund any federal appropriations. So even though, it was a project that the Senate was in agreement with, they didn't fund it. So we submitted that through Senator Murphy's office. As you know, since they're starting to talk about the government shutdown at the federal level, I think the likelihood of them passing a budget in October, I would anticipate a bunch of continuing resolutions. And if you look at the continuing resolution that failed, but that they were pushing, it didn't have any legislative appropriations in it. So I think there's a reasonable chance that we won't know one way or the other till sometime in next March whether that is funded. If that is funded, that would be about $310,000, which would leave us about $150,000 short of completing the project. We do have that money in the multi-use building fund that's already designated for that. So we could provide our match pretty readily to get that project moving. If we slow rolled it a little bit, next July, we will have another $250,000 legislative appropriation from the state, which we could potentially use for that too. So that, if we get that, we'll have a couple different options to fund that. If we don't get that, we're likely to end up using the town money and adding the state money to it and do as much of that program as we can. Ideally, probably the generator first, because that's one of our biggest needs right now. And that's it for me on that, unless you have other questions related to grants or buildings or anything else.
Quick
Thanks, Eric.
question. Are these grants all listed on the town website somewhere? Like, because obviously I'm not going to sit here and write all these notes out. Is there someplace where we can go and see like the list of all this stuff that you were talking about? Or is that in that big?
I mean, I will
Document.
send you an updated grants master list file. I'll send that to the Board of Finance. I was planning on doing it because, I haven't
Oh, that'd be
updated
great.
it in about 6 months, but yeah, I will
That'd be
give
great
you that.
because,
So you have. it.
yeah, it's a lot. And to sit here and write the crib notes is painful. So thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Not a problem. Other questions for me related to that or any other topic?
Eric, just a follow up to Liz's question. Sorry, Kim. If we do that, if you send that to us, will it have the town match listed on like a spreadsheet? I was
Yes.
don't make work for yourself. I just wondered if the
No,
official
it's on
spreadsheet-
there.
It
Yeah.
is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I know a lot of the things have passed, and we'll say there's 150 or smaller, 20. And thank you. That's good. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yep.
Good question.
Kim, you had a question?
No, just a couple of comments. First of all, Eric, thank you. Sounds like you have grants going on for the next 15 years. Uh, wow. And I just wanted to like comment with Liz there. When I started on the Board of Finance, one of the things I had hoped to do is have a spot on the Town of Andover website where we listed our grants, all departments within the town. I thought that would be great. And I've realized while I've sat here and listened that that's probably far too big of a project to take on. So I get it. But I get what Liz is saying too. It's a lot to try to write it all down and et cetera, et cetera. But thank you very much for your update tonight.
Yeah, I'll give you, I'll give you in the next week, essentially 3 documents. One is the master grant list.
Mhm.
The second is the updated, for lack of a better term, it's the CIP report on town buildings and properties, which is essentially its function as a 5-year capital plan. Although to be honest, we've gotten so much done with the town's buildings that the majority of things we really needed to accomplish, a real significant fraction of them are done. So what I'm going to do is basically list out everything that still hasn't been done. And what I tried to do is I tried to assign 2 things to each recommendation. And that is some kind of code which says why we want to do it. Is it because of energy efficiency, comfort, longevity, or is it related to public safety? And then a priority. So you can kind of look at where my thoughts are, not only on what we need to do, but what is the most important to think about as we go into budgeting. But the great news when you look at the document is if you compare this to what I gave to the board in, say, 2020, we've knocked off a huge number of the big projects that we have. So the good news is, it's not that big a list that we have to think about. So that's good. I'm pretty happy with that. And then that is pretty much it. The master grants list and the CIP report will get you most of the information. And then I have a kind of a projects list also, which is all the projects, building projects that are underway or recently completed. And with that, I list what the funding sources is for all those. So you can see where the money flows into for these projects.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot going on. And
Yeah.
we've tracked down somewhere north of $14 million in grant funding in the last 6 years, which for a small town is pretty
Wow.
awesome. So,
Thank you for your explanation.
yep.
Any other questions for Eric on his report?
Thanks again, Eric.
Yep, thank you. It's helpful.
Sure.
There is a lot of detail, so yeah, the summaries will be appreciated. I know we've had things like that before. Been a while. Okay, so I think we can go on to old business. The first one is the review of the budget to actual. We're pretty early in the year. I didn't see anything unusual. Eric, is there anything we should be looking at there? Any concerns?
Sure. Nothing that's a showstopper at this point. So the one thing that will be an issue, and it won't be an issue in this year's budget, would be an issue in next year's budget, is the Board of Selectmen did agree to increase the hourly wage for the assistant town clerk. The reason that's not an issue right now is because by the time November, the earliest we would be hiring a town clerk probably is January 1. Half the year is already done. So our total expenses for the town clerk's office for this year are going to be reasonably under. So we have no budgetary issues there, but there will be the effect of an increased hourly wage for the next year's budget. So I'm just
Eric,
letting.
one follow, thank you on that. Is that because that's a unionized position? So there was like an MOU that the Board of Selectmen went through? I don't need
Yes.
details, just, nope, thanks.
Nope, that's in, you can get that MOU if you want.
Oh, yeah, I'm not, you said that the Board of Selectmen agreed to raise it, and I happen to know it's a union position, so, which are
Yep.
usually posted. No, just clarification, thanks.
Yep, if you look under 4214, which is community center, given the current staffing levels, there is not enough budgeted for both individuals, for the community center director and assistant. So if the Board of Selectmen does choose to keep both employees in place, which it sounds like they're leaning on doing, then we're going to need to find a source of funding for that extra salary. So I'm just giving you a heads up on that. The other thing and so if you went down to the Public Works, we're going to be definitely under on Public Works salary this year because we will have gone at least 2 months where we were short 2 of the 5 employees. So we're pretty close to a final contract with a Public Works supervisor. We're not announcing who that is yet because the Board of Selectmen would have to agree to a contract for that. And then that individual has to resign from where they're working now. We're also probably tomorrow, we will be onboarding a new Public Works employee. So that's good. Again, we're good.
Sorry.
Shoot.
I'll let you see I don't want to interrupt till you're, no, follow-up question. Does the town, when they have those individual contracts, is there a probation period written in?
For the person that's going to be in the union, there's automatically a 6-month probationary period. There is not for somebody who's a professional. I did work with the labor attorney to make sure that the employment contract for the person that will be running Public Works, there's more flexibility built into that one than necessarily we've had in the past. But it's touchy because most people were jumping from a secure position to something new. They want an actual multi-year contract before they're going to consider it. So
Right.
I think
And
we
I
made
know
a reasonable compromise.
Good. I just know that our town, the history, we've had a lot of problems, where it's been a situation. So, I mean, obviously you learn as you go. That's not my role here, but it financially impacts the town. When one contract doesn't go through and then there's multiple employees in a spot, or that's all. So I wondered if, from the outside looking, if they've decided to upgrade it just to protect the town a little bit. So that when these contracts don't go or don't work, or an employee leaves or they come back, you know, that it's just protecting the funding. That's all, the financial part. So thank you for your answer to that.
Understood. The next thing that was, so as you remember, we've been doing brush piles basically every 3 years at the transfer station. So for 2 years, there'll be 0 expense for the line item, and then it jumps up to a big number. We actually waited about 3.5 years this year. And at the same time, we put a lot of the town, because they, to save cost, has been switching away from distinctive tree care and using another tree service. But we end up doing more work to get rid of the extra wood, which they'd been dumping at the transfer station. So the long and the short of it is, you know, we had a much bigger pile than we anticipated when it actually came time to chip it. The cost was more than $20,000, but we spent the extra out of the tree budget, because that's really what it was. It was in part savings from using a different tree contractor. So that's done. So we'll take $20,000 from the brush pile, and we'll take the rest from the tree care permanent fund. So I'm just kind of letting you know that that's occurring. We've also been short on senior transportation drivers for a while. We're very fortunate in that we've gotten 2 new drivers in, with their F endorsements. So we're basically back up to full staff with senior transportation. So we were definitely under budget on what we were spending for senior transportation, but that was in part because we weren't able to provide rides to everybody who wanted one. So happily, we're back up to full staff for that. It is early in the year. That's really everything I have in terms of budget to actual, unless you have specific questions about line items for me.
I don't have any questions, but I'm just curious. Do you feel like now you are staffing the senior transportation properly? Do you have enough? Is that going okay?
Yes, right
Okay.
now we have 4 drivers, so we have enough capacity to meet all the demand we have. We only have 4 vehicles. So, but it allows us to mix and match and cover for people. We had some significant periods of summer where, when you're down to 2 drivers and one of them's on vacation, you
Sure.
can't cover a senior luncheon and a medical trip or multiple medical trips. So we ended up, having to refuse some requests we'd rather not have done.
Right,
We're
especially.
back to full staff. We're happy
Okay.
there.
Good, thank you.
Okay, anything else for Eric before we move on? Next item is check register. I don't know if anybody has any question on that. It's basically look like standard stuff. I didn't see anything unusual that I would have asked about. If no questions there. There was another item that said 5C donation request, but there's no supporting documentation there. I'm not sure what that's about. Eric,
Yeah.
So that was, listening to your last meeting, you had wanted to continue a discussion on how donations were handled. I wasn't at that meeting, but it said that.
I wasn't either.
So it was kind of left on the schedule.
We had
So-
that whole discussion last meeting
Yeah.
about, the town was getting a donation, and it was a question of, can the town accept that? Where does it go? What account does it go? How do we handle that? And it ended up being a little more complicated, I think, than anybody figured going in. So I thought we'd table it and continue the discussion, but I don't think we're really prepared to do so tonight. So maybe we just leave it on there for the next meeting.
Cheryl was at
Right,
our meeting, right? And Cheryl talked to it and explained to oh gosh, I can't think of her name right now.
Diane,
Ms.
Thank
Diane
you.
Grenier.
Diane Grenier, who was, very interested in it. So she went through all the steps. So all of us were, educated on it, that it is a lot. You just can't. So it was nice that Cheryl was there for that. But Cheryl was going to follow up with a couple notes and then talk to the auditor. I didn't get any information.
Yeah.
So she might have reached out to the auditor to find out if they can create this account or whatever. And if
she
it's
was gonna
needed,
ask the auditor's opinion, right? She was gonna ask
Right.
the auditor's opinion because
Mm,
there's really no way to set this up. There's no easy way. And Cheryl tried to explain the process and how it's not so cut and dry. And
because you have to have an
Cheryl-
approver, right?
yeah, and so with these little bitty amounts, it's a lot for the treasurer to manage all these little bitty amounts. And Cheryl agreed to go back to get the opinion of the auditor because she feels that the auditor would not think it's a good idea either, but she agreed to get their opinion. And obviously we haven't heard back from her, so we don't know the answer to that. I think we just agreed to keep it on the agenda in case, so it's not forgotten about.
Sure. I would say in my annual discussions with the auditor, Mike brings up the number of little funds and accounts the town has and bank accounts relative to the size of the town.
Yeah.
And I also know that, small funds with small dollar amounts, I would bet there's a lot of little funds we have that we spend more time having Cheryl reconcile them and do financial statements for them than we make in the funds.
Right.
And I don't have a solution because I don't want to discourage, organizations from seeking small grants. I mean, that's a wonderful thing for the town. But on a lot of these things, even the Norton funds, I often wonder whether the town would be smarter to just write a check, to the Norton Commission for 15 grand every year out of the general fund, and then not have to deal with any of the fund accounting for, all the little pockets of money they have. Not a popular opinion, but, there's a cost to these that we have to keep in mind.
And
I
that's
say we
basically what
wait.
Cheryl said. pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark, I suggest we just wait until we
Yeah.
get more info from Cheryl, but it was enlightening,
Yeah,
hearing
it makes
it,
sense.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember some of the discussion, preliminary
Yeah.
stuff. So, okay,
It was
good.
like $2,500, I think she wanted to donate. Was that right?
Something like that. Yeah, it
Like
was,
$2,500 she wanted to donate, and
I think she wrote a check to the town for $1,000, and that's just the holder, because what she's done is she's donated the money to the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. And they invest it, and the dividends from that, or the interest from that, will get transferred to the town on an annual basis to be spent under her account. So the town has to have its own account, for the Hartford Foundation to transfer money into on an annual basis. So that's really where even though the town's not holding much of the money, it's a bigger bequest, but we're only getting the interest from that request available to
Yeah.
the fund.
Okay, well, let's leave it there then. Agree, makes sense. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we move on to new business, 6A is the update on the fire department squad truck purchase.
So we finally got the paperwork completed after a half dozen rounds with the bank and making the first selectman come in to sign paperwork on at least 4 different occasions. A little embarrassing on my part, but the vehicle has been paid for. The town has made the first payment to M&T Bank for it. It's set up for essentially automatic withdrawal from our general fund to the bank to pay the annual payments. The truck is in the fire department, and we still need to finalize the paperwork to, assume control over it. But that's proceeded pretty well.
Good. Progress.
Slow progress, but progress.
Any questions for Eric on that?
Eric, you said it
Okay.
was in our firehouse, you said?
Yes, it is.
Wow, okay.
Should have a
If
tour.
you'd, at the steak dinner, you could, if you looked outside, the
Ah,
one
yeah.
in the middle was the new squad vehicle.
I missed that this year.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 6B. This is to schedule the tri-board planning meeting. So Liz had graciously agreed to help organize some polling of the potential or all of the board members. Liz, did you come to a clear consensus on when that should be scheduled?
Yeah, I didn't hear from everybody. But the agreed date for the people that did respond is October 15th, which is Wednesday. Mark wasn't available on Thursday, which is actually after the 15th anyway, so that's not a preferred date. And somebody on the Board of Ed could not do Monday, but everybody that responded yes to the 15th. So my recommendation is that we have it on October 15th at 7 o'clock. And I'm happy to send an email out to all the boards to let them know that if you'd like me to do that.
Is
Well,
that the
let's make a
second?
motion and schedule it then, I say.
All right.
Can I just ask you
I make
a
a
question?
Quick question, in person or virtual, number one, and where do you want to hold it?
I think an
Yeah, you did it.
in-person meeting would be nice, only just to get everybody together in a room. But I don't know how other people feel about it. I know it's not as convenient.
Mark, once we schedule it, are we gonna open it for discussion for particulars of it? Is that what we're gonna do? Or
We certainly can, but
I don't
we
mean
don't need
long,
to,
but
right? I think we
to
can,
adjust those
I think
couple
we
things.
I think we can just agree kind of on what the agenda is. We can set the agenda outside of the scheduling. It's pretty straightforward. If you read the charter language, it's straightforward, but it's fairly open. It just says to set the goals and objectives for the meeting. In fact, I had it open. Let me see if I can get that up real
Yes.
quick again.
The goals and objectives of the budget year, something like that, right?
Scroll. Yeah, I found it here. Duties in the budget. No later than October 15th, the Board of Finance shall confer with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education to discuss the goals and objectives for the upcoming budget. Board of Finance may suggest a target for expenditures for both the general government and the Board of Education budgets. However, the target shall not be binding with respect to budget submittals. So that's the extent of the language regarding this meeting. So what I would think we probably want to do is a couple of things. One, kind of lay out a preliminary or work out a preliminary schedule, for submittals, et cetera, as we've kind of done in the past, although not quite this early typically. And then the goals and objectives might be, the objectives to keep the budget as low as possible. But we as a board can recommend that, we recommend that we keep it no more than a 2 to 3% increase, or push a number on there, what you want, flat, reduce the budget, whatever we as a board want to recommend. I think it'll be a little tough for us to, well, maybe it's not tough, but I don't think it'd be a bad idea for us to say, I think we should target no more than X% increase in any area. And, if you do this, then you need to come up with very strong justification as to why that would be.
And we did hold a meeting. We did have a tri-board meeting. Obviously, it was after the fact last year because all of this came into play. So this is the very first year we can go so early and follow the timeline. So we have precedent of trying to have this meeting last year with the goals and all of that. Yeah.
I think the
have some-
goals of the other
yeah.
tri-board meeting have been more about communication and interaction. How do we work together?
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
this
yeah.
one
That's
is
definitely still needed. I get it.
Yeah.
No,
So
this
I mean,
one's specific, but I do, if since we're talking about it and then setting the date, I mean, I think there's been a lot of confusion with different people sending out emails, and I applaud Liz for taking this on and, gathering all the information, and, trying to poll the boards. And it's unfortunate that when someone does that, you don't always get a lot of response, but I've had that history too, as far as sending out multiple emails. And there's still some board members that I still haven't even received one response back from, but most people hopefully did get back to her. But my point being, I think this email of putting this together should come from either the board chair or the vice chair, just to avoid confusion. You guys can all talk to that if you don't agree.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you're probably right. I mean, it is formally
It's
required
getting a
to by
little
the
bit
charter.
confusing for people within town, getting all kinds of emails from different people or different organizations. I don't mind saying this in the, it's nothing against no one wants more work to do, but I'd be
Yeah.
happy to send out the email once the date is selected.
Well, I think it probably
It's
needs to be
more.
more than an email, actually thinking about it. Probably makes sense for it to be a formal letter, as we've done in the past for certain things. And then,
And
we just
you're
send it to
one that
the
usually-
chairman of the
yeah.
Board of Ed and chairman of the Board of Selectmen and copy everybody. Or, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I just think I mean, there's a reason to people, whatever happens in the future is fine, but I think
Yeah.
gotta kind of rein that in a little bit. I know it's gonna be talking about it later. Everybody's welcome to send out everything, but as you know, we're gonna be
Yeah, I
discussing.
think this is a formal communication, so
Yeah.
I think that does make sense that we would have it.
We're following a charter rule, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I?
Okay. Kim?
Liz, I want to say thank you to you for sending that out and trying to get the group together. Can we appoint a moderator for the meeting? I think last time was it Jed?
Jed Larson.
And then I think that it's ideal that we have this meeting in person, possibly offer a virtual link, Eric, if someone requests it, just so that they're not excluded. That's just my personal opinion, but I do want to say thank you, Liz, for trying to get this large group of people together.
And
it's
I like
too
the
bad that
idea
people
of,
don't always respond to you, Liz, with the work you put
Yeah.
into it.
it's okay.
Well,
I-
it's not. If you're elected by the town and you're on a
Yeah.
board, you need to respond to things if,
Yeah, agreed.
but
Yeah,
but thank you for your efforts
So,
too. I
yeah.
appreciated seeing it. I knew it
Yeah.
was coming up quickly.
and I agree. I like the idea of doing it in person with the option for whoever can't
Just
make
in
it in
case.
person. So that would mean the options would be what, Eric? Either the grammar school or would the senior center be able to accommodate something like that? Is it set up for that or not yet?
We could simply move the owl projector over to the community center, or we could do the community room. Now that the sound attenuation panels are in, that works okay for hybrid meetings, certainly better because the acoustics are better in the room. It's
Which
not
one? The
great, but
community-
it's not bad.
The community room or the community center?
Room.
I would
Either.
probably go for the community room. But if you decided you wanted to do the community center, you could set that up for it. It's the same equipment in either room, and they both have the sound attenuation panels. It's just normally that stuff stays set up in the community room, not the community center.
I feel like the table setup, like Bill said, worked out great the year we had it in the community room. It just seems like the space accommodates a bigger square around, but
Yeah, and I don't expect we're gonna have really any public participation to speak of, so I don't think the capacity is gonna be a big issue for something like this,
Mhm.
just a guess.
yeah,
And we
I'm
don't
sure
have
that
to
we've had
decide
some
tonight,
thought. It
honestly.
hasn't
We
been an
can
issue.
plan for that, and then if something comes up, we can change as long as we post it.
Yeah, good idea.
but I do think we want to make a motion to hold it that date, 7 o'clock. It was a proposed in-person meeting. You know, this is, I think implication is that this is a Board of Finance
Yes.
a led meeting. So, you know, if we wanted to hire a moderator, select a moderator, we could, but, you know, my advice would just be to keep it simple and have the board run it like we do our normal meetings. We'll post an agenda and try to, you know, go through it in that way. Most of it was going to be open discussion. You know, with, you know, potentially some proposed dates. Eric, maybe that's something that you could come up with if you have the time. If you don't, fine. You know, we can take a look at something to do that. But you know, we come up with some proposed dates for the budget schedule and see if we can get agreement on that date. And then if the Board of Finance has a particular target budget amount for the budgets this year, then we can, you know, make that known. Bill?
Just going back to the tri-board meeting, we had it last year with Jed, as someone pointed out. With these particular boards that are going, I think there's a need for a moderator, in my opinion, so that you have just, you know, there's discussions, but he kept things on track and kept people from getting too out of control. As you know, there's a lot of still some animosity between the town, the Board of Ed, this board, that board. Just in my opinion, it worked out nice having a moderator last year. I don't know how well that meeting would go without someone reining it in, but I'll leave that to everybody else's decision. But I was there and I really felt,
I agree,
Huh?
Bill.
I was there too.
I just think without some control, things could get kind of wild.
But I also, I
You're
agree
wrong.
with you. No, I agree with you, Bill. Oh, I was there as well,
Yeah.
but I also don't want somebody there to shut down somebody's speech. You know what I mean? And I know Jeb was great, and it's he was very good.
I just
But
think not to
there was
shut down
fine line.
anybody's speech. I don't think any moderator would do that. A moderator just makes sure that everybody kind of sticks to the rules, doesn't hog the meeting, nobody shuts somebody else down by over talking them. It's everybody
Mhm.
gets to say their piece. That's, I think, the beauty of a moderator, but
Okay.
that's all I'll say on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no,
Well,
I don't
the
disagree.
beauty of a good moderator or somebody,
A good moderator.
there needs to be a firm hand in this meeting. And I think the meeting, and it's targeted, it has a very specific agenda. I do not think we should stray from that agenda. You know, as much as we may need more interaction and discussion between the boards, I think that this one has a very specific purpose and should be, you know, we should stay laser focused on that purpose. So from that perspective, you know, I'm okay either way. If you guys think that it works better with a moderator, I'm okay with that. If you think it's, you know, if we just want to run it ourselves, I'm okay doing that either. I don't have a problem running the meeting and, you know, herding the cats, as you will, you know, as chair. But I'm also totally okay with deciding that it would be more productive to have an independent moderator. We can certainly do that. You won't break my heart, believe me.
It's gonna be the third one that we've had, and having the specific agenda, he really did just kind of honor the agenda, I think, and move it along, and he would only interrupt when needed, when there were a few people that do tend to, you know, take it over. And, you know, so I'm on the fence too. I would hope and that people can be mature, and this, like you said, is a very specific budget related tri-board meeting with us. Yeah, but there's been a lot of stuff going on still and recently, like Bill said, so we're hitting the time when it's still all flowing. So possibly Jed would be a great person to just invite and have him, and Mark, you could, I don't know. Yeah, I wanted to stay on track and just do the specific purpose that it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I think we should insist on that.
Yeah.
So somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to set the date for the meeting, October 15th at 7 PM, to be held at the Town Community Center with the option of adding video.
Community center or community room?
Community
Community
room,
room
I
at the
I thought we
town
were doing
hall.
I'm
community
sorry,
room.
community room
Good.
Community
At the
room.
town hall.
Yes.
Second.
at the town hall.
Okay, so Liz makes the motion, Rob seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 I
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, I think we're good. Okay, well, getting back to this, we will not have an opportunity to meet before that. Do we want to set some type of target increase percentage that, you know, we would advise the boards not to exceed?
Yeah, that was my next question. 'Cause I was just gonna say that we're not gonna meet again. How do we?
I think
guess
we would
have
have to
that
do it now.
conversation now.
Gotta do it now.
We could have that conversation now.
You know, we don't have to. We can simply say, you know, you better keep any increases low or non-existent, you know, I mean, which is kind of how I personally feel about it, but, you know, and leave it in general terms, or we could say, you know, you need to keep it at or below the, you know, the rate of inflation. I mean, we all know
I was
that.
just saying, thinking inflation, but
Well, there
is
are
the-
contracts, and I don't know how the contracts affect things. We would have to look at that. But, you know, certainly that's, you know, from the standpoint of the taxpayers. Unless we have a really good reason, I don't see any reason we should be doing that much more, but. You know, there may be
What-
projects, there may be specifics that need to get brought into the budget, and that's fine. Like I said, this is just advisory on our part.
Yeah.
If we choose to do it, we don't have to.
Probably always a smart idea to ask people to come in, you know, as low as they can. But I thought this meeting was for them to tell us their projects or their thoughts. So I'd have to look back at the format and what the charter said. Clearly, others that I thought might speak up at this point aren't, but you know, I think it's always a smart idea to hopefully keep, you know, budgets as low as you can. The town can only absorb so much, and that's just a suggestion. You know, people are going to come in, but that's my thought on it since you asked, Mark.
Oh, I agree. I agree. It should be but what I think is as low as you can is not going to be the same thing that another department is going to. Their low is not going to be my low. You know what I mean?
right.
So I kind of like the target idea, but
Well, setting a target, Liz, kind of gives you the opportunity when we're going through the budgets to be able to say, okay, this is where everybody came in. This people tried to stay in those limits. These people seem to be way out here. You know, it kind of gives you something to look at each budget and say, we asked people to do 1.5 or you know, whatever.
Very smart.
And it helps you to look at each one of those budgets as they come in, having a
Mhm.
number in there. I mean, you can just go in and say flat, whatever you wanted to do, but it's nice to have some
Right.
kind of.
I'm happy to see a target. I'm happy to let's call it a number. Let's say we want to see our budget no more than 1.5% increase next year.
Yep,
I'd vote for that.
Or, yeah,
I would too.
you like. I mean,
Do you want to make a motion that the board propose that as their target increase amount?
Chairman?
I'll make a motion that we ask for the budgets to come in at no higher than 1.5%. Is that
increase.
correct?
I second that.
Okay, so just for discussion, do we have any more discussion on that? I mean, it's an aggressive target. It may not, you know, it may be challenging in some areas, but I think we did okay with the budget last year.
Yeah, it's a target, right? It's just a target.
Mhm.
It's a target. If for some reason it's not possible, the reasons are presented to us and
Right.
Yep.
and then we talk about it.
Yep.
Yeah,
fair.
that's smart. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Yep.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none. So I don't think we need to necessarily communicate that in advance. Obviously, it's a public meeting, so it'll be out there. But what we'll do is I'll write a letter just informing the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education of the date and time for the meeting and location. I'll send this all to you to take a look at in advance, and just state that the general, I'll just restate the charter language and just say that our objectives for the meeting are to have an overall discussion of the budget process, propose a calendar of events so that people have a general idea what the schedule should be, and come to some agreement about the process. And the Board of Finance may suggest the target, but we don't necessarily need to state that in the letter. We can discuss it when we get there. That sound okay?
Thank you.
Fair.
Perfect.
Yeah. Eric?
Very fair.
I was just gonna say too, one thing that I'm not empowered to do as an administrator, but my fellow town managers do every year with RAM. And I brought this up with the Board of Finance to see whether you wanted to do it in previous years, is do the same thing with the RAM Board of Ed. And give them a target and say, hey, tough fiscal times, we would really like to see you guys bring the RAM budget in at X. No more than X increase. Andy Tierney used to ask me pretty much every year to go in on that with him and Marlborough's first selectman on sending that to him. And I always said, I'm technically an administrator. I don't have the legal authority because I don't, I'm not a town manager. So, but that is something you could consider.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you have brought that up before.
Yep.
So separate
Better to
tasks,
be
but definitely worth keeping in
proactive.
mind.
Yeah.
Be
Mhm.
proactive, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Put it out there.
You really have nothing to lose by doing that, right? So it's all-
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do
Exactly.
how do we go about doing that?
Well, I think that that's basically the same thing we just did, that we propose that, we agree on a target amount, that we recommend the RAM budget Board of Ed come in with their budget increase. And then we draft a letter and send it to them. It's not binding, of course, all of this is not binding,
No.
but it's just
Right.
so we have agreement as a board formally.
Start, yeah.
We could do it now. We could do it, we could wait until we have a new board convened after the elections. It's probably, I don't know if it's early enough in their process or not. I don't know enough about the RAM process, budgeting process. We could do it in next month's meeting too,
Yeah, one
I
of
think
the.
it's the kind of thing you
yeah.
want to convey, and if their board membership changes after the election, you really want that to go to the new board members too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's who's up for the election then, what the terms are, but you really want that to kind of hit as they're beginning the budget process, and not too late into it or too early, So, but I like that idea, Eric. It's a good point. You brought it up before, and I think it's appropriate, and it follows from what we're talking about here. So,
Yep.
Yep.
my view. Yeah. So we can put that on the agenda for next meeting or the meeting in November, and then make sure that gets done. So I don't think you want to wait much later than November.
Definitely by
December.
October, because I think they're pretty early in their process too. They do their budgets, don't you? I feel like it comes
I
out a
don't know.
little bit sooner.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we can propose it now. Eric, when did the Tierney typically do that, or do you know when that used to be?
I think
issue?
they used to do that more like December, January timeframe, like before RAM has really, so that after after the superintendent presents his budget, but before the Board of Ed really starts
Starts the discussions. Yeah.
deliberating.
Yeah.
And I think sometime, like I know the old business manager for AES used to encourage the Board of Selectmen to give her a target to shoot from early, because when you're building your budgets, you just figure out what programs you can actually take on and you can't. So I don't know how the current administration will receive that, but in previous years, that's something very similar was done.
Hey, Eric, I'm just sitting here thinking that the 15th, that community room might be the next zoning board of appeals meeting.
Well, then you guys are bumped.
So we're bumped. So we got to get another room. I'll talk to Wayne, see if we can get a different date, different location. Because I'll skip that and see if I can get a quorum without me at the ZBA to make this. Obviously, we'll have to get another room. So
October 15th, zoning board of appeals, 7 to 8 PM, economic development committee, 7 to 8 PM. Do you meet in person then typically, Bill?
we meet in person, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
people like to come and present, their plans,
Yeah,
that
makes
sort of
sense.
thing. So I'll ask Wayne if we can either make it a different date or different location, and I'll see if I can get enough people to fill in without me and have them elected chairman, because I'm the chairman of that board, have them elected chairman that night to run the meeting. Or
Okay.
move the meeting altogether one way or another, but I'll work on that.
Okay, thanks. So back to the RAM discussion, recommendation. I know it's not even really on our business tonight, so we really probably should put it on the agenda for another night, since it's not on our agenda.
Yeah.
And we didn't technically change it. We probably should put that on October's meeting agenda,
I'm fine.
or November,
Mhm.
if we want to have it a little closer and issue that in December, once the budget process really starts. I personally think it would be more effective in November, December, and also make sure that you're capturing any changes in the composition of the Board of Ed for RAM.
Sounds good.
So last question on that vein is, what do you want from me for this meeting? Is there any particular, I said I'll get you the grant stuff, the project stuff, and the capital stuff. Is there anything particular you want from me other than that?
For the tri-board meeting,
Correct.
just the calendar, kind of a proposed calendar or schedule of events, that would be, it's the only thing I can think of that we would need from you, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And-
I'll try to get that to you, Mark, at least say 10 days ahead, and you can look at it and give me feedback on that
Okay,
prior to the meeting. Because that might be smart for you as a board to just present that to the other boards and say, here's the schedule, here's what we want.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I
do-
don't think, it's generally, you put together a pretty reasonable schedule and people don't seem to have an issue with it. So, I mean, some of it's mandated by the charter anyway.
Did
Correct.
we agree that we were or were not having a moderator?
We
The
haven't made a
motion said that we had the option to choose a moderator, so it left it open.
Oh, okay. I just wasn't sure if Eric or somebody had to, schedule a moderator to be there. I just was wondering. That's all.
Well, I
If we
would-
decide to, go ahead. But if
Yeah,
we-
I was just gonna say, if you decide you want a moderator, I would ask Jed, because I think he's been an effective moderator the last couple of years, if you want to go that way, but that's up to you. In the last question, I know you guys have talked, to some extent, you as a Board of Finance get to decide what the budget looks like. If you have specific things you want to see in the budget, I think you should put that out to everybody there, myself included. Because I'll make our budget adapt to whatever it is whatever format it is you want, you just have to let us know.
Personally, I think people are just used to a specific format, so if we deviate too much from it, I think it becomes confusing. But certainly open to entertain anybody's input if they want to see things differently.
Yeah, the only concern I have is that the charter specifies what the budget should look like. It specifies how many
For the town
columns.
meeting, yeah.
So, I mean, for the town meeting? Wouldn't we want to just have it set up like that from the get-go, or what do you think? Like, do we want to
I
dive
think
into
so.
what that should look like
Yeah.
now?
Mhm.
But I think you generally have that, don't you, Eric? Or, yeah, not always. I guess we haven't always had that.
Something about 5 columns, and I've never seen anything with 5 columns.
Yeah, the problem is that in some ways it doesn't actually provide you any information. Because one of those is a projection of the current year. You know, in December, if you're projecting, you know, the current year, you really don't know what your final expenditures are. You know, and then it's also the spending to date on that. But unless somebody really knows for every single column how much should be expended in what calendar by what date, I've never seen that as information the public could really get anything out of. So we tried to get close to the charter required one last year, but you know, we can produce it. It's when we've done that in the past, it's caused more confusion, not less confusion. But
And truthfully, I just need to, for the record, state by us moving everything so forward, it's a little difficult because we have to make all these choices so quickly. You know, I was never a fan of moving it earlier, you know, because we've got to decide what do we want to see, what do we want to ask. You, Eric, have just stated that we don't have the information, which is right. We're not going to know. Not too much is expended so far to make realistic assumptions for the next years. So I just want to state that for the record. It's hard moving everything forward. I was a real fan of the timeline we had in the past because we had a little more information, but I'm not going to prolong it. We have this new charter. We have to stick by having the meeting, going with what they want. So
One thing I do think, though, that I think we probably should decide whether we want a moderator or not. Let's not leave that hanging. Because when are we gonna decide?
I would like to have him simply because of the way the town is right now. Like,
Do you want to make a
go ahead
motion
now.
to that effect?
Yep. I make a motion that we ask the town administrator to invite a moderator to the tri-board budget meeting just to keep us on track.
I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion?
Do we need to specify the moderator?
I can add.
I mean, we know, we just had the discussion that, you know, he was gonna ask.
Jed.
Well, if
Yeah,
Jed's
do
not
it.
available, we'll have to decide on somebody
Right.
else. So.
So,
Right, I mean, I want him to have that flexibility in case he has to get it back,
Yeah.
but we're
so
obviously.
we'll just say
looking-
Eric will get a moderator for the meeting, and he knows
Okay.
you prefer Jed.
That's fine.
I
okay,
thought about throwing that in there, but I didn't know if I could.
Yeah,
No,
let's,
I just
let's
had to
leave
be
it open
complicated.
and we'll make a
Okay.
decision.
So
All
Other
we
right.
second it?
discussion?
Oh, discussion.
we
All those in
seconded.
favor?
All right,
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No, motion passes. Thank you.
all right, so moderated 7 PM in person unless you can't, we'll have the hybrid capability at the town hall, October 15th.
Yes.
Good to go. I should be there.
Okay, good.
Good, Rob.
All right, anything else on the tri-board planning meeting, budget meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on. Again, thank you, Liz, for putting it together. Next item is the approval of the meeting minutes from August 27th. Anybody wants to make a motion to
I
approve
make a
those
motion
minutes?
to approve the August 27, 25 regular Board of Finance meeting minutes as presented.
I'll
Okay,
second.
Bill seconds. Any discussion?
Just want to mention it was a nice short meeting. But
Nice.
that's my decision.
Mark wasn't there.
That's
just
the common
kidding.
No,
denominator, I
Eric
guess.
wasn't there. Just
Eric
kidding.
wasn't there.
No, Joanne was
Oh, yeah.
running it, kept going.
Do we have any discussion relevant
Just
to the
kidding.
motion at hand?
Yeah, sorry. That was relevant.
No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? And I will abstain since I was not at the meeting. So the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we have agenda item 8, which is board open discussion. So a couple things. I sent you all an email earlier today, passed on some information. We got a request from the chairman of the Board of Ed that we not have people individually just contacting Fuss and O'Neill. I guess it was confusing or problematic for them. I guess asking about
Bathroom.
the bathroom project at the elementary school. As I stated, I think that the biggest concern here is that there's not a lot of information out there. And the Board of Ed or the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance really has not been part of the process. So hence there was confusion or, concern on the part, I think, members of both boards to get the information and understand what they're doing and figure out what the heck is going on. And as Caitlin said, she said they would get it to us as soon as they have it. They don't have anything yet. So to me, it's just kind of a black box. I'm just hearing a lot of rumors. Other than, seeing some of the stuff in the minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting, I didn't know anything was going on with it either. So I don't think that that's going to be a topic for discussion for this tri-board meeting. We should endeavor to keep that out, but it is something we have to address in terms of what the process is. So,
Mark, can I ask just a procedure question when there's an RFP, just because that's not my expertise? So say there's an RFP, everybody's already approved Fuss and O'Neill as this, I mean, it's gone before the boards, with hiring them to handle the RFP and the bid process to get the bids in. So is it even appropriate? Aren't we supposed to wait procedurally until something's selected and then it will be given to us? I mean, I just want to know if it's even appropriate that way. And I'm not condoning or, people are just trying to get some information. I'm not saying anybody did the wrong thing, but is that even a thing that we're allowed to do? Or or do we?
well, it depends, I guess, on what's been done. I mean, I think if you're some of this is not super clear in the charter, granted.
Right.
But I think that if you're embarking on a capital expenditure project, then it would behoove you to keep all of the people in the loop who are going to have to approve that project. And that's really the CIP. That's the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. So it would make sense to have included people in there. Now, apparently there's a committee, and I don't know
Right.
what they signed up for, who's on the committee, what they've asked Fuss and O'Neill to do, what the scope of the project is that they've been given. So there really isn't anything yet. So, I think it's appropriate to ask that we have been kind of kept in the loop. So that's kind of where I am. Go ahead,
No.
Rob.
Yeah, my understanding of the status of things is they just weren't ready to bring it to CIP or Board of Finance yet. Fuss and O'Neill is still working it up. So they kind of felt like, well, we don't have what you want us to bring you yet. When we have it, we'll bring it to you. But I think it's a fair point to make to them to say that, we are anxiously awaiting that.
Yeah.
It seems fair.
I just want to
I
know
have-
procedure. I don't understand that whole thing. Yeah, thank you.
So my concern is I've listened to the past several meetings and I know they formed a committee. And I know you, Bill, you were named in the subcommittee, so I'm anxious to hear what you have to say. But in the meeting that I saw from, I think, June, they said, yep, we'll have a subcommittee and we will post the invitations to those meetings so that people can be informed as what's going on. Well, I've scoured their website and I haven't seen anything. And then they have reported in their last Board of Ed meeting that they have the contractors lined up and they named them all. And I felt that it was really inappropriate to do that without having any public meeting to keep the public aware of the project, where we were in the project, what the scope of the project. To me, it just seemed like, wow, they're just running through with this project and they've got their contractors and nobody knows anything. So I think that stirred a lot of concern in a lot of people.
And there was also some conversation at the last selectmen's meeting that RFPs had been posted both on the Board of Education website and the Town of Andover website.
Had not been,
That they were posted, but they were not, there was nothing.
but they were not.
But if everyone saw the email that I sent it directly to the person because I re-listened to that. I agree with you. I was on that meeting too. I know that Eric was asked a lot of questions about the RFP or the project, and he didn't really, I tried to see it. You didn't offer too much, Eric. I don't know if you were at those committee meetings, and we'll listen to Bill too. So I went straight to Val and I asked her if she had posted the RFP because I wanted to know because of what Kim just said. And she said she did send me an email saying that she requested that it got posted. So I don't know why that didn't happen. So she sent us an email asking the town to post it, but they didn't. I don't know why it's not on the Board of Ed website. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's just an RFP for a bid. Like I said,
She also said she was going to have it posted at the school as well.
right.
And that would
I
be
didn't
all
look
kind of
into
a,
it. Right.
right, that would all be kind of like as a side because they're hiring someone to actually do the RFP project. Right, Eric, that's like an official thing that goes through the state of Connecticut, right? Am I understanding that right?
I don't know what their process is exactly. So she sent me a blurb to put on the town's website that basically says Fuss and O'Neill is doing anything. If you want information, call Fuss and O'Neill. That's not an RFP. An RFP is the document outlining what the RFP is the RFP. If I had had that, I would have posted that.
Yeah, and this
Right.
isn't, we're just trying to learn. This isn't, we're just trying to get information. Like Liz, I don't understand an RFP process. That's not my expertise, right? She said that she sent an email to, I guess, Jeff Murray, who's on the Board of Selectmen too. Unfortunately, he wasn't at that meeting and probably could have cleared up some of the questions that were asked. Yeah, so it said that there's a subcommittee. You're right, we all do need to know information. So I'm asking Eric. Eric, say there's a town RFP and I know bids are sealed, working in a school system, bids come into the school system all the time. They're sealed, they have to be opened. I mean, we're not privy to that until there's final information. I just want to know the procedure. So, you know,
No,
we're thinking things we shouldn't. Yeah.
I can't speak to the school's procedure.
No, I
doing
asked
it.
your procedure. Like, if you
But
had an
so-
RFP, you're ready to open your sealed bids, what would you do?
Right, so when we have an RFP and there are sometimes if it's a state or federally funded project, there are additional requirements put in it by those agencies. But ordinarily, sealed bids come into the town clerk's office. They are date stamped and signed by the town clerk or the assistant town clerk saying this was received by, because we have a no later than date on all the RFPs. The RFP is posted on the town website. Usually they're published in, depending on what it is, we can, if it's a smaller RFP, we might get away with posting it locally in the papers. We tend to send them to all the contractors that we know that would do work like that. For the, like, for instance, the bigger stuff, the federal bridge programs, we are required to submit the notice of RFP to 2 newspapers with statewide circulation. So we do that. The RFP is on the town's website. If it's something that involves a really large plan set, like a bridge, you know, where you've got 100+ pages, PDF pages of bridge design, then we use a hosting service for the FTP and also for the hard copies, because the town doesn't want to get into going at running action blueprints and running copies for people, you know. So we use an outside service for that, but the RFP itself is listed on the town site. And if you want to look, there's an RFP up right now for construction
I saw.
services. That's on the town website. That's a
And then
typical.
once you open them, just to not ask, you know, once you open them, then is it someone's right to, before you've chosen or whatever you have your committee, is it right to add for the public to see every bid that's out there?
Oh,
It seems like that's not public yet, but I could be wrong. That's all I'm trying to see is what we're allowed to see.
They'll
before-
answer.
yeah, as soon as it's open, it's publicly available. Bids are open, it's publicly available. Most of our bids for either services or major construction projects, a lot of the contractors will have a representative there.
Yeah.
And when you open the bids, you read off the actual bid price and all the pertinent. And if it's a federal local bridge program or something with federal or state dollars, DOT will also often have an observer there, you know, or multiple observers there, depending on what it is. And you, like, for instance, with the bridge project, we had to reject a number of applicants because they didn't supply all the proper documentation in the original bid.
Yeah.
We can be a little more flexible if it's a town-only bid and just go back and say, hey, buddy, you left out this and this.
Yeah.
But with state bids, it's very, you know, programmatic, and he didn't supply the information on electronic media, bid is automatically rejected, that kind of thing.
It's somebody who spent many, many late nights putting together multi-million-dollar bids for state contracts. I now have a flashback. Thank you, Eric.
No, thank you for.
But he's
I
right.
was-
And sometimes the price is actually a separate proposal. So sometimes they'll give you a technical proposal and they'll do the price as a separate proposal. And they'll open the technical proposal, that becomes this public document, except where it's redacted as confidential by the contractor, which they can do that. It's not always allowed, but they can, you know, proprietary information, they can redact as confidential. And then the price is kind of held separately so that you can negotiate with the supplier without it, you know, being a public record. So yeah, it can be very complicated, or as Eric said, if it's a town only, we could probably make it a little straightforward. We've kind of gone back and forth on whether we want to even, you know, do bids type things. Does it need to be sealed? Does it not need to be sealed? It's, you know, it always adds a layer of bureaucracy, and we don't have a lot of resources, so we have to be a little judicious in how we do those kinds of things, I think. So
Yeah,
No, thank you for that overview. So it sounds like they've already opened, and according to what I'm seeing, yeah, I just wanted to kind of know the process to see where they're at. So,
And didn't do it publicly, for the townspeople to be able to see. So this is
Right.
going to be an interesting year.
right. I
Go
mean,
ahead.
in my case, the way we do bids is written out in your purchasing policy. So you've actually specified kind of how the town does the bidding process, and we generally follow
No,
that.
I know.
You
I
may
have
add
researched
additional
it,
things
yeah.
to it, but the Board of Ed, technically you exempted the Board of Ed from that requirement. So,
Well, they hired
the
Fuss and
idea was-
O'Neill to do the thing, so I don't know what that means for the town. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, as regards a specific purchasing policy, I think the idea was the Board of Ed should work up one themselves, and it would probably be good if it comported roughly with ours. But they had sort of, you know, by charter, they're kind of separate. So I think that's why it went that way. As I understand the project, yeah, I think basically the idea here is that nobody on the Board of Ed has the expertise required to really get their arms around this project. So they wanted to hire an expert to run the process.
No, it makes sense, and that
Yeah.
went through tons of meetings and got approved,
Yeah.
that they didn't have the, go ahead, Brian.
I think I heard my name thrown out there as being on a subcommittee.
Yeah.
That's news
Did
to
you know
me.
that?
No,
Did you know that?
I have never been in any
Wait.
kind of meeting. I have never been notified I'm on this meeting, so I know nothing.
Oh, that's so funny. It's
Nice
so
to know
funny. I
that
gotta
I'm on the
remember-
subcommittee when they meet, but I'm not
It's-
aware of,
It suggests not a very organized meeting. Maybe they haven't met yet.
I
No,
have
but I
not.
heard, in true, because I was at an event somewhere and I did hear that they were putting a committee together. And I think I was near Jeff Murray at the time, and he was saying he was going to be on the committee and possibly they were going to reach out to you, Bill.
Oh.
But that's good that you're saying you were never notified. I did hear
Yeah.
your name as being a person.
If
that-
Jeff Murray's involved, they won't be inviting me.
Okay. I
Tell you
don't know.
that
I
much.
think they were trying to have a few people in as stakeholders that would have some information. Again, I'm far removed from it. That's why you see me asking questions tonight. I just listened to the Board of Selectmen meeting, which went a little awry on that as they usually do. So I figured I like to educate myself on how things are supposed to go. And,
Well,
then I
ideally,
asked,
we would have a BOF liaison on that committee. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
but we
I'm
are
not saying
such
I
a
wouldn't do
small-
it. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
no one's
Right.
told me I'm on this board yet, so.
If
Yeah.
nominated, I will not accept. Yeah. Etc.
Right, right.
That
If
was-
elected, I will not serve. No.
All right.
You
That was
know,
a
but
good
yeah, I haven't heard
discussion,
anything
just
either.
what we should do, shouldn't do, what we're allowed to do, what the process is. So that's all.
Okay, well, I'm clearly not going to beat Joanne's record for short meetings. But I also wanted to point out, the other thing I put in my email is that Jeff McGuire had stated that he was going to try to make, exercise his participation as an ex officio member of the various boards. So he expected to participate in the Board of Ed meetings and the Board of Finance meetings going forward. Couldn't do it tonight because he was traveling to California, at least for us. And that's right in the charter. It says that the first selectman is an ex officio member of all boards and commissions, period. Doesn't have any differentiation or explicit things by that. So typically, that means that that's somebody who's a non-voting member, but who would participate in these discussions as any member would. So just as a heads up for that more than anything else. Jeff's stated goal is to make sure that we're all communicating better, which I think most of us would agree is a laudable thing. We do need to communicate and make sure we have as accurate information as possible. So
It's truly really helpful if you think about it. I mean, people should be, when they're on a board, you learn so much by attending the other meetings. So more power to him. He doesn't have to rely on secondhand things. He'll hear it himself.
right,
And
and
he'll be
we can ask
educated to
questions of
things that
him,
he hasn't.
that we may not
recalled
be
in the
clear on.
past.
So
Yeah. Good.
So the other thing, if you guys are okay with that, the other thing I wanted to just throw out there is that next October's Board of Finance meeting is the last one before the election. We will have a different composition on our Board of Finance next November meeting. I think most of you are aware, but Rob's term is ending. Joanne's term is ending and my term is ending. I'm not running for re-election. So at least my position will be turned over. So in the event that neither Joanne nor I won't be obviously elected because I won't be in there unless, somebody gets crazy and writes me in. But as I said, I would refuse my party's nomination anyway. My unaffiliated party nomination. But what I wanted to propose is that for the next meeting, we have nominations and appoint maybe another co-chair or an acting co-chair or chair, so that in the event that neither Joanne nor I won't be in there, if Joanne is not elected, then you will have somebody nominated to chair the meeting in November. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is if that were to happen, I would guess Joanne would probably be elected, but if she's not, then you will not have a chair and you'll be meeting. So you'll really need somebody to lead that meeting and guide it. So I would propose when I set up the meeting, the only thing I really do as chair is that, Joanne and we get an email from Kate saying, here's the proposed agenda for your next meeting. Are you guys okay with that? We'll add things, we'll remove other things, but that's really what we only do as a chair that you guys don't necessarily do, other than some communications, which we usually just share with you unless they're routine. But you do need to have somebody to run the meeting, and you don't want to go into the meeting in November looking at each other going, okay, what now? So I would recommend that we nominate and vote on another co-chair in the event that happens. Do that at our October meeting.
And obviously it can't be me either. Just in case.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to have it be Rob.
Right.
So
You
I
are
am
running
running
again
again.
though, Rob.
I am running again, yes, but
The
things
the
happen.
alternative would be
You can't.
that your
This is all
remaining
contingency planning, so it should probably be one of the other three.
The alternative would be you could do something like draw straws or something like that. But personally, I would just take it ahead of time, and it only needs to
On
be for
Zoom.
one meeting. Just somebody until you have the new board in place, and
Right.
then as we had to kind of discuss as our normal process is that we should vote on new chair and co-chair positions following the elections on an annual basis. So
Right.
Thanks for thinking ahead. That's
And
great.
Yeah.
that's a good
It's a good thought. I
question.
hadn't
When
thought
the
about
new
that.
board is elected, do they take office right away? I thought there was a delay, or is it in the new year?
there isn't really, I don't think, a delay. They're supposed to be, I can't
Sworn
remember
in.
exactly what the charter says. It says something like until the new officers are selected and I don't know, posted or something like that. I don't know what it is. So I don't know if technically they need to be sworn in or not. But generally, once the election takes place, there's not like an inauguration day where they start their term.
Right.
So
Yay. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just go to town hall, get sworn in again,
Right.
or for the first time, whatever, and then you're good to go.
Good plan.
But that's it's interesting how the charter doesn't specify a handoff date. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, it says
well, yeah.
on the website, it tells when the term ends, and the term ends on November 18th.
Yeah, which is
I
the
think-
Tuesday.
Good point.
Well, actually, it's 2 weeks
That's
after
2
election.
weeks
Not
after
sure why
election.
that is.
So I think that gives 2 weeks for the person to sign it, to
Get sworn.
swear
Sworn
in,
in.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
probably.
we typically have our meeting the week
Yeah,
after that,
our meeting's scheduled for the 19th. So
19th, right? Because we can't do the week
Oh.
after that because that's Thanksgiving. Duh.
Right.
yeah, so that makes sense actually because
Yeah,
that way
that actually all lines up fine. Yeah.
the 18th is the term end date. Yeah. So that's 2 weeks after election day. So
Yep.
that makes sense that it gives them the opportunity for them to get over and get sworn in. which
between
needs to
those two
happen
things,
before they
that's-
can conduct business. So
Yeah, that's clear then.
You know what I find really interesting, just as kind of a side note, is that the Board of Selectmen board all gets reelected in the same year.
Isn't that weird?
that is
They
very
did that
weird,
on
isn't it?
Whereas
purpose.
we're staggered, right?
Yeah.
For continuity, right? A little bit of continuity. Board
Yeah,
of Selectmen could be a whole new board overnight.
Could be.
right.
It's
The way
weird.
things are going, they may all bail at this.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I honestly think the staggered process works a lot better.
A
and
lot better.
That would
so
be my
Right.
take on the matter. But there's all sorts of differences. I mean, we're 7, they're 5, that kind of stuff. But
Right.
yes, to do it all at once like that, you could have wholesale changeover and lose an awful lot of knowledge like that.
Good, sure
which-
could.
Weird way to run a town.
Very strange.
Look, it
There's-
used to be worse.
Used to be
Somebody
worse.
thought about it and there must have had their reasons, I hope, but.
There's
Used
so
to be
much
worse.
knowledge that you gain by being on it. Your first, I
Let's
think.
keep that one in mind next time we do a charter review commission.
Right.
Right?
That's a good thought.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Okay, so,
All right,
all right, so
moving
it sounds like you all appreciate that offer, that
That makes
need
sense.
to kind of take care of that business. Any other board open discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 9, which is correspondence. We have a copy of the RAM contract included. Eric, I don't know if you have any comments on that or?
No, just when they sign a new contract, they're authorized to give it.
Yeah.
And it's the administration, every school system has multiple contracts for their unions. So this one, when I took a look at it, this looks like they're administrators. So they're principals, assistant principals, the superintendent would have a different contract. So that's what I saw. Looked fairly standard.
And then the next thing is a copy of the special report from the OLR. That's the Office of Legislative Research. I trained a bunch of those people how to use WordPerfect one time. That was,
WordPerfect.
3 lives
Oh my
ago, I
gosh.
think.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
That still exists?
Does it still
Honest to
exist? I don't
God.
know.
Yeah, as the Office of, I trained a bunch of lawyers how to better use WordPerfect.
Oh
I
my
worked for a
gosh.
small software company. We were under contract to the Connecticut General Main You know, and I was like a project manager and I got drafted in to do this because I knew a lot about it. But anyway, funny. Little aside. But here we have the report from the OLR on changes that will affecting the municipalities and the laws. Eric, there's a lot of data here. I certainly didn't read it. Is there anything you think we need to be pointed out to?
Yeah, I
22.
think if you're gonna read anything, read on page 8 of the document, the blurb on MERS 2.0. So basically, this is something that the comptroller took on as a kind of Herculean task, which was reform the what's called the CMERS, or Connecticut Municipal Employee Retirement System accounts. As you know, the costs for employees under that is incredibly high. It was a lot higher. They were able to bring it down, but the big problem is that there is a pretty significant unfunded pension liability in the CMERS program. So, like, for instance, the town right now contributes about 15% of an employee's salary into the system, but only about 5% goes to that, adding to that employee's actual pool of money to get paid out later. And the rest is dealing with all the unfunded mandates for the employees that didn't pay in enough in many years previously. So they're doing what's called the MERS 2.0, which will be a second plan going forward. Now, the earliest the town can enroll people in that is, I think,
July 1st, 2027. Looks like.
Yeah, and they're also doing, going to authorize and set up an alternative annuity plan for municipalities that are not in CMERS currently. But it would be good if we were able to transition new employees after 27 into MERS 2.0, because the benefits to the employees are essentially the same and the cost of the town are considerably lower. So that is, I think, a good thing. And that speaks to hopefully some fairly significant cost reductions for the cost of benefits for town employees kicking in a couple of years. Doesn't help us now, but it's at least good that they're doing that. Aside from that, they really don't know where they're going with funding at the federal level. They did budget for an increase in health department and health district funding, which is good because they cut that for 25 and 26 and then restored it plus gave extra money in 27. So why they cut it for 2 years and then restored it as a higher level, I don't know, but that's good for the health districts and that should lower our costs as a member of the health district. There's the other thing that I think was good was their OPM had this requirement that if town budgets increase greater than 2.5% or the rate of inflation, then we got less state funds. So if you're having trouble keeping your budget under control, the state's response is, well, we'll give you less money. Like, that was a good idea. So we've kept under the cap, and we haven't really had a problem with that historically, but they've lifted that going forward. And that's just an FYI. Hopefully we don't get to the point where we're over the cap and we would have been eligible for it anyway. So that is, something we have to deal with. The other big thing is the comptroller has announced that he really is going to go after significant reform in the way town taxes, the state system for towns collecting taxes. Nobody knows what that's going to look like. He's asked kind of all the town managers and administrators and mayors to give them, you know, their suggestions, and they're going to hopefully see whether they can come up with something that's an effective reform for local taxes. In my head, the biggest single thing the state could do is increase its share of educational funding to the towns, because that is, you know, 2/3 to 3/4 of our budget. And if you want to make a noticeable difference in town taxes, that's the way to do it. So that's all I want. You can read through this. There's lots of pages of data there. Every year they, you know, pass an enormous number of laws, and we all try to figure out how to accommodate that. That's it.
Rob, you had your hand up
You
earlier.
know,
Your question.
it's irrelevant because they rescinded the thing anyway. So whatever.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 10, which is public speak. Looks like the only member of the public we have here is Tess. Tess, do you have anything to add to public speak?
Mark, thank you. No, I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'm impressed by your hanging in there ability. These exciting times. Next item is adjournment. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Second? Kimberly, you had your name up, your hand up, but you're
I'll
muted.
second it.
Okay,
Thank
any
you.
discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Were you opposed, Liz? Is that what you? you
No,
were saying that, right?
I'm an I, I'm a,
Just want to make sure.
Belated aye.
A belated eye. There you go.
yes, I'm a belated
Any
I.
abstentions?
We're
Sorry.
gonna have to institute a pitch clock, you know, so
Motion
you gotta get through
passes. I slam my
After
virtual
9.
gavel. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Take
Take care.
care.
All right,
Thank
bye,
you.
bye.
Bye.